We are just days away from the NBA draft, so we had to catch up with friend of the show, Danny Marang. From 1080 The Fan to the Jack Ramsey, my man is on every platform. Danny, is this an exciting time of the year for you?
It's kind of like Christmas for me. It's not a secret. As much as I love pretty much all sports, I'm a basketball psychopath, and the NBA draft is kind of the niche. I've had people ask me over the years what my favorite part of basketball is, and honestly, my favorite part of basketball is really the first 4 years of guys. Don't be wrong, I appreciate the all-time greats and the guys that aren't, but I love watching young guys being able to figure out the game and where they can contribute and where they can get better, and finding that guy that has just that little bit more something. And that process starts in the lead up to the NBA draft, and trying to kind of put those puzzle pieces together, not just for the Portland Trailblazers, but the NBA at large, is one of my favorite parts of that entire process.
That was an elite segue, my man. So how would you characterize this year's NBA draft?
It's really good. It really is. Last year's draft was down, and this draft class does have the absolute supreme A-list guy at the top. You know, we had Victor Wembanyama 2 years ago. Last year, not as sexy in Zachary Risacher going to Atlanta, but when you look back at it just after that first year, you go, okay, this guy's a little bit better. This guy isn't as good. Steph Castle wins Rookie of the Year, which I think a lot of people thought he was positioned to do. Jared McCain could have been one of those guys before he got hurt with the 76ers, but there's going to be some good players from last year's draft class. This class, it will be a stunning surprise to me if Cooper Flagg from Duke does not live up to all-star, at least, level potential. Like, I've been doing this this is my 15th year. I've never seen a high school, college prospect more mentally, emotionally, physically ready from the United States. Okay, so I mean, that includes the likes of Zion Williamson from Duke. It includes Anthony Davis from Kentucky. I look at Cooper Flagg over the last 15 years, and he is a guy that I just go, this guy is special. And it's not just his talent, it's the mental makeup. He won't be 19 until December. I have never seen a kid more locked in. And you get further down the list, you go to number 2 at Dylan Harper, and you look at guys even beyond that, VJ Edgecombe, Con Knippel. I think when we look back, this won't be the best draft we've ever seen. This is not LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony. But I think you're going to have an all-NBA guy in Cooper Flagg, and I think you might have a couple all-stars in that really 3 through 12, 14 range. There's probably going to be a couple other guys who pop, but I think on the whole, this is a slightly above average draft class.
Lottery didn't go the way Rip City had hoped it would go, the Blazers with the 11th pick. So, Danny, what do you think is more likely? Use the pick or trade the pick?
I think you're probably looking at a slightly better than a coin toss opportunity for the Trailblazers to use the pick. And that really pertains to, I think, a lot of teams, from 3 through 11, when we're looking at the draft slotting. It does sound like the Philadelphia 76ers have kind of zoned in on VJ Edgecombe. I would expect, as it stands right now, 1, 2, and 3 are going to be Flagg, Dylan Harper from Rutgers, and VJ Edgecombe from Baylor. But that could change. The 76ers are a team that have discussed moving up to 2. They discussed moving back. The Utah Jazz have had discussions, from what I've heard, about moving up. The New Orleans Pelicans have had discussions about moving up. The Washington Wizards could move back. The Nets could move up. Basically, every single team from 3 through 11 is looking at every option on the table. And I think you're going to see a pretty active NBA on the draft, or especially leading into the draft if Kevin Durant does get traded, because the likelihood is there'll be a pick that is involved there in this draft. As it pertains to the Trailblazers, I think that they definitely have guys on their board that they think will be available at pick number 11, but there's an opportunity for them to move up, move back, or do what they did last year with Deni Avdija and trade some draft capital for a guy that they think has even more left in the tank and can really explode. And Deni obviously did that for the Trailblazers this year, and I think they're very excited about what he can be going forward and be a building block for them. And if they can make that happen again, great, but it's hard to, have that lightning strike twice.
Yeah, it turned out to be a hit. Trailblazers fans loved that move. How do you value the 11th pick? What are you hearing across the league in terms of what the value is on having the 11th pick?
I think that everyone believes that there's going to be a handful of players, essentially from pick 6 through 12, that could go anywhere from 6 to 12. Whether that's Jeremiah Fears, the point guard from Oklahoma, or Noah Senge, the big forward from Ratio Farm Ulm in the German Bundesliga. Carter Bryant from Arizona, Kasparas from Illinois. There's no shortage of guys available in that slotting, but it's a matter of who's going to be picking there. You know, there are teams that are very much interested in Colin Malowich, probably the number one overall big. Not even probably, he's the number one overall big in this class. 7'2", big man from Duke. Came to the game a little bit late. He's absolutely enormous. He was here last year for Hoop Summit. When he walked in, I went, "Damn, that guy's huge." You know, and he has a lot of things still to work on, but he's so big. He's so fluid for a guy that big that you can see why teams fall in love with him, because he's so big and fluid for a guy that size. But when he shoots, it looks like a feather leaving his hands. I haven't seen many bigs who have that kind of touch, and you wonder if that can translate into more beyond that. And there's no shortage of teams that are looking at those opportunities, because 7'2" plus guys that can do things incredibly rare. You know, there's the old stat out there: if you're over 7 foot tall as a man on this planet, not in this country, on this planet, you have essentially an 18% chance of getting an opportunity in the NBA, because they're just so few and far between. And so when a guy does flash some skill or some potential along with that size, you're going to get some long looks from NBA teams.
This is definitely in your wheelhouse, Danny, in terms of prospects and guys that we should be looking at, especially in relation to the Portland Trail Blazers. So who are a few guys that we should be aware of that might fit what the Trail Blazers are looking for?
So that's the real question, is what the Trailblazers are looking for. Because if you look at every single position on their roster, whether it's point guard, two guard, small forward, power forward, or if you want to say wing and forward and big man, they have a young guy or two backing guys up. You know, Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, Toumani Camara, Denny Avdia, Donovan Clingan, those are all guys under the age of 25. You know, with the exception of two just had a birthday. But beyond that, you've got Chris Murray, you've got Ryan Rupert, you've got a lot of very young guys in this roster. So if you're looking at this team, you're kind of trying to figure out who's going to be the next part of this, you know? And so do you believe in Scoot Henderson or Shaedon Sharpe sliding into a further spot? Or do you think that maybe you need a little bit more reinforcement there, and you're looking at point guards like Yegor Demin, the 6'9" ball handler from BYU from Russia by way of Real Madrid? Or are you looking at 6'6" pick and roll creator Kasparas Shakashianos, guy I mentioned earlier, for the point guard from Illinois? A guy who I think had a rough shooting time in the second half of the season from Illinois due to some confidence and some injury stuff and some context around Illinois. Or do you fancy yourself looking at the forward/wing market with a guy like Asenge, who I mentioned earlier, measured in last week at 6'10", barefoot with just over a 7 foot wingspan. You kind of wonder, you know, what he does well enough to get him on the floor right now, yet you look at his production in the German league, you're like, you keep seeing production. And so you go, well, the upside might be there if that's a guy that you want to take a chance on. But I know there's a handful of teams that also think the same thing. There's also the wing from Arizona, Carter Bryant. You know, he was coming off the bench for Arizona, but if you watched the NCAA tournament when Oregon played Arizona, you saw Carter Bryant make incredible plays defensively, paper over the gaps, knock down some threes, get out in transition, be an opportunistic guy, and he was able to adjust into a role while being a high-level recruit. So it kind of shows you his IQ, his mentality, his understanding of like, hey, I'm not a starter on this incredibly veteran-laden team that has a ton of experience, but I know how to get on the floor and make an impact. And those are the kind of guys, I think, not just the Trailblazers, but the NBA looks around and values. You know, Channing Frye has a line that I really like, and he says, it's something that goes along the lines of 85% of the NBA players are role players. Because on every NBA roster, you've got maybe two guys who are dyed-in-the-wool primary creators, and some teams don't even have that. And so you look at that, that's maybe at most 60 guys out of 500 in the NBA. So you've got to be able to fit into a role, whether that's as a primary guy, a secondary guy, a role player, a deep bench player, a rebounder, a gritty hustler, a guy who just gets after you defensively. You're looking at the NBA Finals right now, and both the rosters for the Indiana Pacers and Oklahoma City Thunder are just made up of these guys. Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, Nembhard, Nesmith. These are guys that they aren't stars, but they're stars in their role. And if you find a guy who understands that very much, it can be very opportunistic for you. It's the chance that the Blazers took with Toumani Camara. He's taken 52nd overall in the NBA draft, and now he's a literal all-defensive player in the NBA 2 years later. So finding guys that can buy into those roles and understand the things that they need to do to have impact on winning, that's as big a part of this as getting the best level talent. Because if the talent doesn't match the role, or if a player doesn't think he matches the role, that can lead to the talent not developing. And I think the Blazers have done a pretty good job of that over the last 3.5 years now, as they've kind of hit the retool button.
Yeah, Danny, it's kind of that discussion or debate between fit versus best available. And Joe Cronin even mentioned to a friend of the program, Sean Hyken, following the lottery that, look, I want to take the best available, and hopefully that's the strategy that comes to fruition on draft night. What do you think about taking on that strategy of taking best available versus fit?
I think you have to factor in fit some. I don't necessarily disagree with Joe. Like if you've got two prospects on the board and one player is clearly, head and above better than the other player, but the fit isn't quite as good, take the best player available. But if they're on the same footing, but one has better fit, I'm going to go with the guy for fit, not necessarily for this roster, but I'm talking stylistically of what I want to do. And as I mentioned, this team is loaded with a lot of young guys. So if you do take the best player available, but you don't have the opportunity to get them on the floor, because you look at guys like Toumani Camara and Deni Avdija specifically. Okay, in my mind, you're optimizing those guys when Toumani is playing at the 2 and Deni Avdija is playing at the 4. Now, that might leave an opening potentially at the 3. Now, 2 has played some 3 and some 4, but I look at that and I go, if you want to put him in his best possible position, let him be kind of that guy. But if you look at a guy like Carter Bryant, who I think projects to the NBA is mostly a 3, even though your roster probably has some more depth there, if he's a guy that you think can carve something out over the next 2 years and be a starter in the NBA, then I think you go down that path. But if you're looking at the fit or the needs of the team, I think the two starkest needs are consistent playmaking at other positions as well as shooting. Well, then you would probably look at a guy like Kasparas Giakoušionis, who can work with the ball in his hand as a pick and roll manipulator. I believe in the shooting long term. He was a plus creator out of the pick and roll for his team. The turnovers are a bit of an issue, but the shooting did look good before he suffered a forearm and wrist injury. Gets to the free throw line at an incredible rate, particularly for a young guy, and knocks down free throws at a high rate, which is usually a very good indicator of touch and shooting success overall. Not many guys are plus free throw shooters while being, a negative as a general shooter on the floor. So there's a handful of guys where you could talk me into pretty easily, and I think the Blazers are probably going to have at least somewhat of the same general area, a range of guys when they're looking at that picking at 11.
Dropping so much knowledge here. Danny, I'll get you out on this one. I'm just curious, do you think it's going to be a quote-unquote active summer for the Portland Trail Blazers?
It would depend on what your definition of active is. I know that's almost just a step removed of a definition of what is, but you look at it and you go, okay, what level of activity? Are they going to make a seismic change where a Luka Doncic comes in? I would be pretty shocked. I do expect there to be some movement. Looking at where they are, because they have so many young guys, and because I think there's a pecking order that hasn't been quite sorted out yet with Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe. You could throw Donovan Clingan in there. I think the Blazers probably want to give each one of those guys one more year before they make any decision on them for the long term. Now, as far as the veterans are concerned, the Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grants, Robert Williams, DeAndre Aytons of the world, all are guys who I think, if you look around the NBA, can have impact and have positive impact. But I look at them and I wonder, what impact are they going to have on the Trailblazers this year, and how much the Blazers want to lean on them. If the Blazers want to get a little more look at some other guys, is there an opportunity there for them to move one or two of them? I think you'll probably see one of them moved. I don't think that'll be Anthony Simons. I don't think that'll be DeAndre Ayton. That pretty much leaves the door open for two guys in Jeremy Grant and Robert Williams III. And I think those are guys that are probably looking to get to teams because of where they are in their careers to be more impactful on teams that are pursuing higher goals right now, which is being competitive in the playoffs. While the Blazers made some real steps in the second half of the season, I think that in-house they probably believe we need one more year to kind of get some data, understand who's going to be what, and how much further we can take it with this general core on the younger scale guys. I do believe that they still want to prioritize having veterans in there, but maybe some veterans that play a few less minutes. The Malcolm Brogdons of the world, as it were. Good players, comfortable coming off the bench or being more of a veteran player that isn't as intrinsic to everything that they do. So if you're talking about movement, I think that's probably the area that you're looking at. But I believe the NBA at large, from probably a day or two before the draft up until the free agency period a week later, I think we're going to see a lot of movement in the NBA, not just the Kevin Durant level trades. I think you're going to see a lot of teams, because of the inhibitions or prohibitions of the new collective bargaining agreement, putting some limitations on teams with that first apron, second apron, and the luxury tax, and just how much of a stranglehold it's put on the NBA. So it's going to be very interesting, that kind of 10-day period, just how active the NBA is going to be.
Danny, I know you're going to be all over it, and I look forward to checking out the content that you have. What do you have cooking up?
Yeah, over on the Jack Ramsey's Patreon, patreon.com/Jack Ramsey's, I've got a lot of draft content. I will be pushing out some draft previews on a lot of players that we've been talking about. Yegor Demin, Carter Bryant, Kasparas Saksionis, Noah Senge. Deep dive profiles that, if you want to be a real sicko, they'll be up on the Patreon. We'll do a live show on draft night, and then whoever the Blazers take or don't take or trade for, I'll have a lot of content following that also up on the Patreon as well. And you can catch the podcast wherever you get podcasts, Jack Ramsey's or youtube.com/Danny Marang.
Woo, Danny, thank you so much for dropping so much knowledge on us as usual. Thank you so much for rocking with us. Take care, bro.
Anytime, brother. I love you.